Welcome to another episode of the OTTRed Podcast, sponsored by Bedrock at IBC 2023. In this episode, we're going to be talking to two subject matter experts, to say the least, when it comes to the topic of maximizing revenue, the art of making streaming ads pay. First of all, I'd like to give you guys the chance to introduce yourself, just so that people who are watching and listening get the opportunity to appreciate just what your stature is when it comes to being domain experts on this topic. Robert, would you like to go first, introduce yourself and give people a feeling of what your pedigree is?
Sure, and it really is a team pedigree for us. So I'm Rob Ambrose. I'm the Managing Director and Co-founder of Corrective Research. We are 12 people strong, and we're a research and consultancy group focused on media, broadcasting, streaming, and ad tech. What we do is we focus on understanding this really complicated market. I mean, we're here at IBC where there's 13 halls of tech. A lot of it is to do with streaming, covering everything from the video pipelines all the way through to the front end. Of course, advertising is a key part of that, absolutely. And that head-to-head streaming technology is under so much focus, is what Bedrock does, of course. Yeah. So what we do is we focus on really understanding that market, who are all the players in it, what do they do, who's buying what technology and how they're using it, and how that's responding to the market trends.
Welcome to the podcast, Robert. Good to meet you.
So, hi, I'm Tran-Quang. I'm the Director of AVOD and Ad Tech Strategy at Bedrock Streaming. I'm in charge, to make sure our clients, which are broadcasters, can really monetize the inventory and get the best revenue out of it, and just make sure they have all the tools, all the technology, and all the insights to do what the decision strategy.
Advertising is one of the topics when it comes to all of the different characteristics of the transmission when it comes to OTT, fast, AVOD, etc. It's one of those kind of hidden but massive topics that actually is the commercial heartbeat of many of these different models. But let's start off by setting the stage. If I pose a question that should bring people into what this whole topic is, why is advertising so important in streaming?
Well, I think to a certain extent it hasn't been historically. Streaming has been about subscription. It's SVOD. That's been the term. And outside of some platforms like YouTube, advertising income hasn't always been the most important thing. As long as broadcasters have identified the importance of putting their content onto the streaming platforms, their model is already free-to-air, ad supported. So in particular, they're happy to pivot their stream model to AVOD. If you can get the TV free-to-air, no one's going to start paying a subscription to watch it online. But also, there's this phrase of subscription fatigue. So there's only so many subscriptions you and me are going to pay for in a month, and most people are already paying for several of them. So the question is, where's the growth going to come from? And that's from free-to-view content. And you see that a lot of the most recent streaming launches have been ad-supported, free-to-view ones. And that's from the big names as well, like Amazon's Freevee service, to name one. But of course also the content owners themselves who are coming out into the market in that. So we think advertising is really important to the future of streaming. But as we'll talk about, I think in a little while, it's also really complicated to do well. And that's another reason that it's maybe not got as much traction so far as it could have done. Because it's really easy to say we'll do some free content and make it ad funded, but not so easy to do in practice. And I guess we'll talk about some of the challenges involved.
Of which I'm sure there are many, and I will like to get into that actually. Tung, what's your posture on that one? Why is it so important?
I think this is really a question. We heard a lot about hybridity, how to mix models, mix tiers. So between the full free, like class for broadcast AVOD, to and the subscription VOD classic, And in the US, we found, like Peacock or HBO, they tested the free tier, the ad tiers. You need to pay, but you're going to have a little bit of ads, but you pay less. So, and it's to see what is the right balance according to the user experience. So ad loads, which is very important, how you agree to pay for at the end, because you pay twice. You pay the subscription itself, you pay by watching the ads. And at the end, in terms of ROI, you know that the RPU it's much bigger for someone in Spain with ads than the classical subscription model. That's why Disney and Netflix are moving towards that direction.
Yeah.
But it's already a path that has been already fulfilled by HBO or Pixar, etc.
Okay. With the level of unprecedented demand that exists now for streaming services, why is it so complex? I mean, if I were being slightly contentious in talking about the fact that advertising services in the broadcasting context have existed for decades, what makes it much more complex, Robert, when it comes to the context or framework of OTT, the streaming?
Well, where to start? So there are sort of technical challenges, and there are sales challenges, and there are operational challenges. On the technical side, user experience is really important in streaming. Streaming users have a really low tolerance for a bad experience. And a lot of the early generation of ad insertion was very clunky. The stream would buffer and stop and often break altogether every time the ad break came along. And so we've only really now got to the stage, and this is where companies like Bedrock have really been pushing on the innovation to make sure that the actual technical process of putting the ad into the stream in the right way works. And there's other related issues like making sure that's done in such a way that stops ad blocking. Questions around, do you do it server side or client side? And then there's pros and cons of both of those approaches. So it's only really now that we're starting to solve some of those technical problems and make sure that the experience when you're consuming ads is slick. So that's one challenge. The other one is operational. And what you often find in a traditional broadcaster is, of course, their business is about selling ads. They've already got a really established ad sales operation, but it's geared up for linear TV. And when they've gone into digital sales, they've often created a parallel process to do that because it's very different. And so now suddenly they're sort of add-ons that they need in place just to manage the inventory and the copy and tracking, or create some real internal complexities. And then there's the questions of, well, should you be selling those ads in the old way to your kind of media buyers? There's little high-touch ad sales. That's what broadcasters do. Or should you be running that through ad tech, pushing those ads out for programmatic sales? If you do that, maybe it's more automated, but actually that's really complicated if you're a broadcaster, because you can't just put any old ad onto your streaming platform. If you're a big-name national broadcaster, you've got to pre-approve the copy, but in many markets it has to go through certain compliance before to be your screen. And then you've got just the sort of commercial side of it is the cost of running those ad tech stacks can be prohibitive. You've then got the challenge around content. So a lot of content rights are geared up for that content to be behind a paywall. So it's actually often the national broadcasters who have access to their own content IP that they can choose to put on ad platforms. So you can see you've got to manage all of that complexity. How are you going to sell the ads? How are you going to operationalize them? How are you going to insert them technically, and in what context?
A rainbow of complexity, absolutely. I'm sure there's a multitude of other things as well. So from a product perspective, I mean, when you're a thought leader at Bedrock, trying to work out how to navigate that landscape of things that Robert's just mentioned, how do you do that?
First of all, you need to make sure that you create opportunities for the sales house, which we need inventory. Inventory that can be sold, and bought and understood by sellers. So everybody understands key roles, big roles, that's fine. As you can see now, even some kind of a return on display, but not the displays, the bad displays you can see on the side, but really quality displays you can see on front page, of a front page of a site or the TV, etc. So this kind of thing that you need to make sure that for our clients that they can sell it, So it needs to be standardized, so everyone can understand the format itself. It can be sold to agencies. But also you need to make some innovation, a little bit of innovation to make sure you can differentiate yourself. But at one point, this needs to be, I would say, standardized at one moment or another, so make sure everyone can buy it. I'll give you an example. For example, pause ads. There was a way non-intrusive that you watch a screen, you click on pause, and you can see a display ads. And there was a feature that we developed maybe 4 or 5 years ago for M6, so no one heard about that. let's keep back, fast forward maybe 3-4 years later, all the US had it.
Yeah.
So you have all the US have it. So you have it also you have it on Hulu, you have it on Paramount Plus, you have it on the Channel 4.
Yeah.
So it's good, but now we need to make sure that it's available everywhere. Scale.
So what would you say that the market is? I mean, ultimately the title of what we're trying to pursue and chase down here is the answer to the question about the art of making the streaming ads pay, which relates directly to the appetite of a market to recognize the value and pay for that value. What is that appetite? How would you calibrate that appetite in the market for advertising over streaming? You know, we've got products like the one that you've just mentioned.
Exactly. To have data, of course, because what we call the impression itself has value for the advertiser because it's been qualified.
Yeah.
So you know who is behind, what eyeballs, the eyeballs, where they are, how are they segmented? Is that social, demographic, intentionalist? Is that person going to buy his car in the next 6 months? So data is key.
Absolutely.
I would just add to that, I think media companies, broadcasters in particular, have gotten used to really having the market for video ads all to themselves, because we've had 50 years of TV advertising. So I would turn the question around, and it's not necessarily about where is the appetite from the media buyers for this. It's more around the fact that the streaming platform owners are now competing with way more people for those ads. So they've got to think about what can they do that's different from YouTube or a fast channel.
Yeah.
And some of the things that they can't do that I think they haven't, but maybe some broadcasters have underplayed a little bit, but we're starting to see that change. There are things like data, as Todd mentioned, and in this sort of post-cookie world that we talk about. You know, so some of the big players like Google in the Chrome browser and Apple have really, and then there's legislation that really limits the ability to use tracking cookies that we used to do in the past. They've got to figure out who wants to buy what. So that goes out the window. So the thing that broadcasters have, and particularly national broadcasters, they have a great deal of brand trust, and they can potentially use that trust carefully to build up what we call first-party data. So they can encourage people to register to use their service. They can encourage people even to share basic information like their postal code, their zip code, where they live, their gender, their age, their interests. And then if they can mesh that with the sort of content that they're watching across the service, you can start to build up valuable first-party data that then becomes something that the other streaming platforms may not have. And then on top of that, you've got this sort of brand-safe environment that many of the advertisers are looking for. There are some brands that are a little nervous about putting their ads out into this sort of wild west of programmatic sales and bidding, because they don't necessarily know where their ad is going to appear.
Yeah.
Making sure that your ad is on a trusted brand like a national broadcaster, they've been doing that for 50 years, so they can completely trust that their ad is going to be in the right environment if they position it there.
What kind of nuance then to my question, not just about the appetite, but have the advertisers got enough capacity to be as innovative as they can be when they're looking towards things like programmatic? Or are they still thinking with that legacy type of mindset that you mentioned, Robert, where, you know, the market had probably plateaued, become very normal, very regular? You know, it's a whole new world now, right? The personalization element, the way that you can reach different people, the modes and different technologies to do that.
I think in the main, the media buyers are very savvy. This is their world. This is their market. They all have specialists who understand how to buy in digital. I think maybe where the catching up has to happen sometimes is on the platform or on the broadcaster side. And it's interesting that we started talking about user experience at the start, and then Tony, you were talking about the different kinds of ads. And one of the real dilemmas or tensions that emerges is, on the one hand, you want to get as many ad impressions available, as much inventory as possible, which means you've got to have enough breaks in the content with enough ad slots in each break. But then that kind of directly conflicts against the user experience, because users will happily tolerate ads, but in the right number. I was talking to one of the leading analytics vectors here at IBC yesterday, and they said they see this in the numbers, that you can actually see that at the end of the quarter, when the advertising team is trying to make up its numbers and slip in a little bit more inventory, more ad impressions, the metrics that measure user engagement go down. So you can directly see that coming through in the analytics. And I think you've got to get that balance right. And that's why I love some of these more innovative advertising models that started to come through. Things like cause ads. I think cause ads are brilliant because lots of people stop the content because they need to go to the loo or make a drink or make a call. That's potentially dead time. Putting an ad that will pause an ad, you're not impinging on that user's experience at all. In fact, you're enhancing it.
Absolutely.
And so it's kind of having that mindset.
I would say that the playing with the ad loads is very dangerous. It can be the easy part, but of course, user experience can be very damaging. So it's easy to add just one pre-roll into an ad break or one mid-roll to an ad break or multiple mid-rolls. But the thing is that either you create much more opportunities, for example, with closed ads, or you're doing SSI on the live. It's called SSI on the live. It's new inventory and non-intrusive inventory.
Yeah.
It's not and already defined, in terms of ad break, because you need to replace the advertiser.
Okay. How would you guys describe this market looking now? Is it something that's still rapidly evolving and unfolding? You'd mentioned that most of the big broadcasters and media buyers have got people that are advanced when it comes to their understanding of complexion of this market. But is it still something that's avalanching in terms of how it's unfolding, or is it something that's become much more well established over the relatively short period of time that it's been around?
Yes, I think all the media buyers, they're looking at the trends, and as you know, COVID, explosion of big screen, with all the tech that are behind it, new inventory that needs to be known. They want to get to know what they're buying, And since, on the desktop and applications, it's, we know that the territories are non-territorial buyers, but on I would say on big screen, it's not there yet. There's so much inventory. They would like to know what else they're buying. That's why there's still a good trust between inventory from broadcasters, in terms of brand safety, etc. And they're willing to buy it because you have the big experience. Of course, you need to be innovative in terms of interactions, or the QR code, for example. Click to action with your mobile. That would be, the next step. And now people are starting to engage with this kind of advertising again. But big screen now is the place to watch, to see advertising.
What do you think, Rob? I think there's some platforms that are doing some really cool stuff, but I think a lot of platforms, and this is not criticism, are still at the pretty basic or even an experimental stage for ad tech. Partly because until recently it hasn't been a huge commercial focus in many media companies because they were still making 90-something% of their revenue from linear TV ads. True. And it's only really now as that viewing shifts more and more to the streaming services that perhaps there's a little bit more attention on how they really kind of monetize that more effectively. And I think also you see, maybe I'm going to slightly contradict myself in terms of the buying side here, because I've also heard that, potentially using more of the data to segment the audiences. Yes, you could do that in theory, but I've certainly heard from platforms that actually sometimes the media buyers still just want to buy lots of impressions in one go, and therefore the data isn't as useful as it is. It's still good to have that brand safe environment, and they still are working with a broadcast platform, with a recognizable TV grab that associated with it. But some of the cool stuff that can be done with the data, some of the stuff that can't be done with the way the ads are inserted and personalized and targeted, that's not happening yet.
Do you think that's indicative of exactly what we're talking about in this question of the level of maturity on that buy side when it comes to, we just want to buy impressions? We're not yet ready to get down into that level of granularity where we're segmenting by demographics, ages, or whatever.
And yet they are, because that's how so many digital ads are bought. So I think it's just, as I said at the start, this is such a complex market, such a complex area, and there are different things playing out all the time.
Yeah. As usual, regarding the CPM, you have a CPM basis, and on top of it, you can increase the CPM if you add data. So short demo, you add a little more, 2 euro CPM, for example. But if you get much more data into it, it's going to cost you more, of course, because data has a price.
Of course.
And the reach is going to decrease.
Yeah.
So you're going to, I would say, have less chance to achieve your goals of delivery if you're narrow too much to audience.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it almost comes down to that kind of basic quantity versus quality type philosophy.
Exactly.
That blend that you've mentioned, Robert, fascinates me. 90% of the revenue coming from the traditional linear. Where's the tipping point in that? Or what do you foresee over the next few years? How long will it take for that to be a tipping point?
Well, I think viewing is already close to that tipping point. I mean, certainly in the subscription world, viewing of SVOD is already ahead of pay TV, and the revenues are already ahead of pay TV. I think in market by market, though, you've got a lot of differences in some of the Western European markets where you've got big name broadcasters who've invested very heavily in digital tech. So you have the likes of the BBC and ITV in the UK, or France Télévisions TF1 in France, or RTL and the ARD group members in Germany. These are all big broadcasters who've invested a lot in streaming platforms, and it kind of makes sense that they've taken more of their viewing onto those streaming platforms. Certainly in our UK market, where I watch TV, there's been a very noticeable shift towards digital first viewing, and the broadcasters are encouraging that. They will start to drop series as box sets on their streaming platform, so you can watch them before they're on scheduled TV, or maybe just earlier in that day. Some stuff only available on the streaming platform, not linear. The BBC said it was going to move off broadcast television entirely to pure streaming model in 10 years' time. Whether that happened or not, I think that was more a signalling maneuver than an actual hard deadline, but really important. Streaming is now, delivering streaming platforms, delivering content over streaming. Even when you factor in CDN costs, it starts to look very competitive, very attractive compared with running traditional forecast infrastructure. So that's, a lot of public broadcasters in the world are also cash strapped. So I think in those kind of mature markets, you're seeing that. In the North American market, very different, because there isn't the same channel structure that networks have. Obviously launched some of their own apps, put some of the good content on it, but a lot of TV system in the US is locally based. And so there hasn't necessarily been a good substitute for your local news on your local network affiliate station moving to streaming, except in FAST. And that's one of the reasons that FAST has grown a lot there. So I think that's a long-winded answer to say it's really dependent market by market. But longer term, even if you're watching something that looks just like a traditional linear TV channel, and there's still a huge market for that. The rise of FAST proves that. People don't always want to have to look for some video on demand thing to watch. There's still a huge desire to just put something on and sit back and watch it. But even if it looks like a traditional TV channel, it will be delivered using very different technology. And inherent is going to be the ability to switch out the ads and target those ads. And even if those ads are completely personalized, it's about things like targeting a version of that ad to a rough cohort of users. That makes a lot of sense. You know where people live, because you're, especially even more so in streaming, with you delivering those ads to them. So you can do a regional variation of that ad. And if you're talking about a product, the classic one is in the ads for car resellers. You can promote the local dealer group rather than the national command. And then you can take in that car analogy, because it's an overused analogy, but it's a good one. You can promote the relevant car in the range to the demographics that use it based on the rough demographic, and you can figure that out by the content they're watching. So those are all kind of really simple things you can do that add benefits to the broadcaster and indeed the viewer.
Yeah, I think linear, even if eyeballs are decreasing, they want to make sure that. But today, most of the revenues of a broadcaster is still coming from the linear. I think big budgets are on linear versus digital. Just increasing, of course, but the big budgets from the big advertisers are on linear. Yeah. And the way I would say things are evolving, at least in France, is to make sure that I would say the linear impression, because now we're going to move into impression based and not GRP. Just to make sure. And with addressable TV, which means the people can be targeted with addressable TV on linear. As I said, with a big step up in terms of technology and in terms of value. Because as you remember, GRP, once the advertiser reaches GRP, all the rest is not being used. Now we really count on the impressions. But each impression has a value, okay? With data into it, of course, data from ISPs, etc., etc. So linear, there's still value into linear budget, even if it's moving, and even if platforms like Netflix, who are new to AVOD, they want to be get the budget from the big broadcasters.
Yeah.
They want to be, and they need to be much more transparent about data, stats, programmatic, measurements, and they want to get budget from TV. They don't want to get budget from YouTube here.
Tung, one of the things that also we started seeing is the idea of performance-based advertising coming into TV. So that's where you're not paying for the impressions, but you're actually paying for the action. So is the user clicking on that ad? Are they following some action? Do you think that will become more commonplace in TV, or is it still not compatible with the
It will happen.
back?
It will happen. It really depends on the advertising itself, creativity. And QR code is becomes very, very. Everybody knows how to use the QR codes. So I can start to see more and more QR codes in linear.
Yeah.
So if you start to see in linear, and with targeting, with the proper targeting on the drive to store, I think there's a big value into it.
I get the feeling, guys, that as you had said at the beginning of it, there's so many different levels to the complexity here. And throughout the course of this dialogue, one of my emotions towards this has crystallized in that the technology is obviously there. There's obviously deep subject matter expertise in the potential of the technology. But as with so many technological advances, it's actually the philosophy of the people using it advancing in order to maximize what the gains are associated to that. Do you think that's where we are? There's that kind of elasticity and the potential that's building up at the moment. And once these things start to get exploited and understood a little bit more, that's when the truer value will be realized to the whole ecosystem.
I think it's about. I mean, I don't think there's anyone in the industry who is stupid or not understanding the potential. But I think people are also aware of who's paying the bills and what the buyers are asking for. And so this is an evolution. The platforms evolve, the viewing habits evolve. Mine and your ability to consume those ads, what our expectations are about that evolves slowly. So this is not like there's sort of anything holding back market. It's just the market is gradually evolving and changing as a result. And don't forget that the one thing that TV, however it's delivered, whether it's through broadcast or cable or satellite or streaming, one thing that TV can deliver that no other content media can deliver is huge reach in one go.
Yeah.
So if you're an advertiser and you want to launch a brand or you want to launch a new product, you need reach. And that's why the sort of Super Bowls of this world, but also the equivalents like football matches or the big format shows that are very popular in Europe, things like Love Island and X Factor and Dancing with the Stars. The reason that those are such effective companies is because those are the platforms that can still build a 5 and 10 million audience in one place.
Yeah.
And that's something that broadcasters can deliver that no one else can deliver. So they're not going to suddenly sort of convert wholesale towards a neatly targeted addressable model and throw away that point of differentiation. So you've got to kind of keep those going in parallel.
I think content is still key. Content has a cost. Good content has a cost, like Love Island, Top Chef. Sports has a cost.
Yeah.
That's why for now, when you see Amazon's getting the League One of France, you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
But because they haven't found the right balance to make an AVOD model regarding sports. So, but maybe at one moment they will find the right formula, to get the money out of it.
I get it.
But
So wrap us up, guys. If we're talking about the art of making streaming ads pay, ultimately, to talk in commercial terms, what's the bottom line, Kel?
It's about having the right content, and then it's about having the right data about who's watching that content, and then it's having the right technology in place, on the one hand, to sell those ads, whether you're doing it manually as part of a package or whether you're doing completely programmatically through ad exchanges. And then it's about having the right technology to deliver those ads to the viewer in the way that maximizes their user experience.
Tung?
to summarize everything.
Beautifully.
You have all the workflow, from the buyers to the users.
There's one thing that I will add that I think we haven't touched on, though, is that in that traditional sort of ad tech world, so the sort of ads that you see online and to a certain extent on other streaming platforms, have gone through a lot of happiness on the way from the media buyer to the screen. And there are data management platforms, supply-side platforms, demand-side platforms, programmatic exchanges, and there's been some consolidation of those into fewer blocks, but there's potentially an awful lot of people along the way. But that's another thing that's actually been slowing down the adoption, because the content owners say, well, when we sell our own apps, we're basically making 100% of that revenue. Not quite that simple, but basically, if we sell ads purely through the ad tech stacks and programmatically, we'd be lucky to see 40% of the growth.
Interesting.
The ad tech tax is really important.
So I think the one thing that we're starting to see is, as the big content owners to pay more focus on the importance of digital ads, they are starting to disintermediate some of those very hungry mouths to feed along the way. And the providers themselves, you start to see the consolidation into bigger blocks that are taking less of a slice, more volume, lower commission. So we'll definitely see more of the revenue finding its way to the people who are actually investing in all the valuable content and sports rights that we took. And I think once that problem is solved, we'll see a big uptick in the overall enthusiasm certainly for programmatic ads.
The ad tech is evolving itself. It has evolved to a certain point, sort of technology that could feed display, for example. But now to apply that to video, which has a cost, because video has a cost, not display.
Yeah,
okay. You need to make sure that when 100% of budget is $100 is spent, the content owners has as much as it can come from 100, and not the ad tech task can take 15, 20, even 30, 50%.
Yeah.
What is the value behind that? Okay.
It feels as though there are so many different levels of this complexity, kind of bedding in, solidifying, revealing levels of benefit, and becoming more realistic. Robert Ambrose, co-founder and managing director of Progressive Research, thank you for your insights, intelligence and passion.
Well, thank you for your questions.
And Tung, thank you so much for leading the thought process when it comes to your domain expertise on this on behalf of Bedrock Streaming. Thank you very much, guys.